Joining us now to unpack all of this, we have Mr. Akintunde Sawyer. He's the Chief Executive of Nelfund. He joins us from our Abuja studios. Great to have you on the show, sir. Good morning.
Thank you very much. Good morning to you. It's good to be here.
Yeah, and I see Nelfund. I see you guys have been quite busy. I see the student loan disbursement, application and beneficiaries. 1.8 million applications received. Beneficiaries, 1.586921 students. That's the latest one for the 9th of June 2026. If we move on there, we see institutional fees paid about 183 billion. Upkeep allowances paid 98 billion. Total loan disbursement 282 billion naira. So you've been quite busy. But we're seeing recent reports circulating on social media alleging that the federal government has suspended the student upkeep allowances. You know, a claim you have since described as false and misleading. But what does this episode tell us about public confidence in the student loan scheme so far?
Okay, great. Well, thank you for the question. And I think I'd probably want to start at the point before the launch of the scheme. And I can tell you that before we launched this scheme on the 24th of May, 2024, there had been skepticism. A lot of people had been saying that this was never going to take off. It was a gimmick. It was something that government was doing to fool the people. And then, of course, you know, we got to the launch and we launched the program. And then, you know, a few of those skeptics dropped away and we carried on with the activities of the program. Of course, there were also people saying that, you know, it was never going to get to the students. This was some sort of arrangement for the money to be siphoned and taken elsewhere. Again, you know, we overcame that. You know, students were getting funds, people were giving testimonies about the funds they were receiving, schools were receiving funds, they were getting it. So, you know, at every stage in this process, we have been dogged with, you know, one, piece of skepticism, some cynicism, some doubt about this. And at every stage, we've overcome it. And, you know, you can't blame the Nigerian public. You know, so many things have been promised to Nigerians over the last 6 decades that have either not materialized or have been wrongly or poorly implemented. The President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, was very deliberate about this particular scheme. And his view, and I think you would have seen from the amount of commitment to education in general, that one of the things that he's fixated on is ensuring that Nigerians get the education they need so that they can be more employable, they can be more useful to themselves, and they can be more useful to the country. So, you know, this latest round of, you know, things floating around on the internet saying, you know, this is suspended, this is not going to go ahead, it's just another round of, you know, falsehood. And who knows why it's being generated. But, you know, our job is to march on and continue to hunt and look for students who need this succor, who need this support, and to provide them with the opportunity to be able to get into institutions where they can learn and become more employable.
Right. And, you know, looking at this issue about upkeep allowance, is it that it just comes, sometimes it comes slow? Is that the issue?
So, yeah, let me, you know, this is a brand new scheme. It's a brand new scheme. We started on the 24th of May. The demand has been incredible. You know, when you start talking about, you know, government disbursing 282 billion naira, you know, with, you know, nearly 1.6 million beneficiaries, and 1.8 million have applied, it's a scheme that's going to get increasingly complex as time goes on. Let me tell you, we've paid 301 institutions to date. We've paid 1.6 million beneficiaries. And a lot of those beneficiaries were paying them every month. Our systems have to be under constant review. Our cybersecurity needs to be under constant review. We've got to be looking at ways of optimizing what we're doing, increasing our efficiency and our efficacy. And we are having at times to, stop, evaluate where we are, look at what improvements we need to make, and then make those improvements for the sustainability of the program. This can sometimes lead to delays. It can sometimes lead to delays, but it's like anything. If you're building a road or you've built a road, at some point you've got to maintain that road. If you're going to maintain the road, you've got to shut parts of it down. That's essentially what's happening with us. We have to constantly renew what we're doing so that we can put ourselves in a position where we can serve the public better.
All right, moving away from that now, one major concern globally is the risk of, a student debt crisis. What safeguards do you think should be put in place to avoid that scenario in Nigeria?
Okay, so thank you for that. So I can confidently tell you that as of today, this is probably one of the most soft-faced student loan schemes you will find anywhere in the world. And believe me, we've been looking. We have been directed to make these loans interest-free. The president doesn't want students burdened with interest. We've been directed as an agency to ensure that students don't have to pay back until they're able to. In other words, if a student doesn't get a job, they can't pay, so we won't ask them to pay. The way this is set up is that students or obligors pay or start repaying 2 years after they've completed their NYSC. Effectively, in most cases, that's 3 years after they've graduated. And you know what? They don't even pay themselves unless they're self-employed. It is the employer that goes to a register, looks at the NIN and says, this candidate that I'm about to employ has a student loan. And then the employer is obliged to take 10% of that person's income, their salary, their wages, however they're paid, 10%, and remit that 10% to the fund. There's no tenor on this, so there's no, this is how much you owe, you must pay back by such and such a date in such and such a year. This is a pay as you earn. And, if people never finish, paying the loan, they don't. It is the repayments are not tied to what is owed. The repayments are tied to what is earned. If you're earning 0, you pay 0. If you're earning $1 million, you pay 10% of $1 million, 100,000. So that's the way it's working. It really is, this isn't a grant, but, the president has made this so comfortable, so easy for the students, and of course for us who are implementing it, to be able to ensure that we get the maximum number of people through classrooms so that they can begin to develop themselves to be the best that they can be.
All right, so, looking ahead, what does success for Nigeria's student financing system, what does that look like, really?
So, we have a very high population in this country, and it's often described as an advantage. What we're trying to achieve here is to ensure that it becomes the advantage that everyone expects it to be. So, for us, success looks like this. We have a very high number of our population educated and able to fend for themselves, able to create wealth, able to earn an income, able to support the economy. Of course, that's not just on the academic side. In order for us to do that, we also have the mandate to do vocational training, skills training, because it's not everybody that's academic, it's not everybody that's a philosopher. There are people who have very practical talents, which can be developed into very practical skills. So the future for this scheme looks like this. We should be able to expand the number of educated people in this country, which we believe is way too low today. We should be able to ensure that those people are productive to the point where they can help build this nation and pay taxes back into the system that then will keep this scheme sustainable. So, there is an ecosystem that's being created here. There's a method to what we're trying to do. But of course, sometimes when an artist starts to paint, you don't see what the whole thing looks like until the final stroke of the brush is put on it. We are at the beginning of this. I certainly won't be here at the end of it, but I can tell you something. The structures we're putting in today will ensure that Nigeria becomes a globally competitive producer and creator of wealth, so we can take our proper part in global growth. That's what this looks like, but it's not an individual thing. It's not about, I give you education, you go and make money and look after yourself. It's about nation building. And no nation can be built on a foundation of poor or no education.
All right, I guess that's a good place to anchor it. Thank you so much, Stan. Definitely, we'll keep tracking all those disbursements going forward. Thank you, Mr. Akintunde Sawyer, as the Chief Executive at Nelfund. Thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me, and see you again soon, I hope.
Yes, for sure.